Welcome to News Conference. Assemblyman Mike Gatto, Democratic of Los Angeles, and Assemblyman Raul Bocanegra from Los Angeles, two men who put together the film tax credit, which was signed into law this past week. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Assemblyman Gatto, let's talk to you first. $330 million sounds like it's a lot. It's not as much as the $400 million out of New York. Why do you think it's enough to help stop runaway film production?
Well, I've heard from so many that California has the brain power, the know-how, the infrastructure, and the talent, plus obviously our weather. And I think as long as we're competitive with these other states, we need not engage in a race with them. This will do wonders to attract production back here.
Assemblyman Bocanegra, it sounds great, but everybody talked about the severe or the intense negotiations. If it was such a great idea, what was there to negotiate?
You know, I think both Assemblymember Gatto and I started working on this 2 years ago, and we really needed to talk to our colleagues in the North that this was a program with the rate of return that you could document, with the good paying union jobs, a lot of them union jobs, that you could document, and at the end of the day it was a benefit for California.
So you had a north-south split. Northern California legislators weren't sure if this was just a handout to Hollywood.
You know, we had to do a lot of campaigning and a lot of education to our colleagues, not just in the Assembly, but also in the Senate.
Well, let's go to that. How can you be sure that the tax break given to these studios, including the one I work for, NBC Universal, will not go directly to the studio itself, but will end up translating to more blue-collar jobs?
This is the only tax break that has been supported by the groups that traditionally fight them because they know that it directly goes to the people who are working below the line. These are the middle-class jobs that are so important to our local economies. There's also been scores of studies that have proven that this type of incentive program works and that it does give a good return for local economies and for the state as a whole. I don't give too much credibility to the studies, though. I think the most important thing here is that it's hard to assign a value to have a good middle class. And what this bill will do, will make sure that California has good middle class jobs for years to come.
Well, how bad is the problem currently in terms of runaway film production?
You know, right now we have documented in various studies over the last 12 years, California has lost something like close to 20,000 jobs. And New York, over those same 12 years, has picked up 12,000 of those jobs. So I think it's very well documented now that that runaway production is real, but with Assembly Bill 1839 it stops.
Well, you also had an effort to land the Tesla plant. This is of course, the electric car that's outselling Mercedes-Benz, from what I understand, in Southern California, which is remarkable. It's going to Nevada. There's been criticism of the governor. He didn't do enough to keep the jobs here. What say you on that, Assemblyman Gatto? Did the state drop the ball on that?
I don't think so. You know, that's the challenge whenever there's something like this, an incentive. If you do an incentive, you're criticized. If you don't, you're criticized. We have tough decisions to make when we're trying to attract jobs, but there's a difference between an incentive program that helps an entire industry, helps an entire group of thousands of working people, come back to California, versus one that affects just a single company. I've tended personally to shy away from supporting incentives that just support one company.
Now, some have said, okay, tax incentives for film studios or to keep blue-collar jobs. And there was the debate over Tesla. There are other things you can do to make the state more business-friendly. One of them is CEQA reform. That is the California Environmental Quality Act. Many, including Democrats, have said it is being abused by other companies trying to stop other companies from building in the state.
You know, speaking as an urban planner, before being elected to the legislature, I worked for the city of LA as a planning assistant for almost 16 years. I would agree. I think the time for CEQA reform has come, and I wouldn't be surprised in this next 2-year legislative session we start seeing things like that.
Is it, Assemblyman, do you agree?
I absolutely agree. I think that one of the easiest and lowest cost ways that the state of California can do things to make the business climate better and really attract businesses here is to reform our regulations. They are too complicated. They are too tough on businesses. I think CEQA is one of them, but rather than just giving incentives, we should look at our regulatory system and try to reform it.
Let's talk about some other bills that you had in the legislature. You have two before the governor currently that relate directly, I should say, to the hit-and-run crisis in California. We are the capital of hit-and-run incidents. Briefly explain those pieces of legislation, and have you heard from the governor whether he's going to sign them?
Haven't heard from the governor yet. We're hoping for good things in the near future. Right now, if you kill somebody with a car and you flee the scene, there is an 80% chance you get away with it, that you never serve a day in jail, that you're not even brought to justice. I have a bill, Assembly Bill 47, which would use our existing highway infrastructure, the alert signs that you see when you're driving down the freeway, and allow the police, the local law enforcement, to, on the arteries where a hit and run occurred, going to and from that community, to just give the plate description, give the vehicle description to try to catch those perpetrators. Denver did this system. Their apprehension rate went from 20%, like we have in California, to 76%.
Because of the alert.
That's right.
Well, some have said you have too many alerts right now.
Well, we did this narrowly tailored. It would not blow up cell phones. It would not buzz cell phones at all. And it would only be in the communities where the hit and run occurred. We wouldn't, if one occurred in downtown Los Angeles, we'd do the freeways that go to and from. We would not do it up in Northern California, of course.
Let's talk about a piece of legislation that you had, and nobody in Sacramento wants to tackle Proposition 13. It's extremely popular, and you can make some very strong arguments as to why that is. But you had a loophole that you targeted in commercial reassessment of real estate. Explain that, Bill, and it didn't go anywhere.
Sure. It was a bill that was strongly supported by both people on the left and on the right, by the Chambers of Commerce statewide, and also by many scores of progressive groups on the left. And essentially, it tackled the abuses, in my opinion, that you had, that I think you can clearly see with the Fairmont Hotel. And when there's a genuine...
In San Francisco.
In
Santa Monica.
Santa Monica.
Got it.
When there's a genuine change of ownership between two properties, there should be triggered a reassessment. And currently, CPAs and real estate lawyers can get around that, thereby not triggering the reassessment. And my bill, which was also joint authored with Tom Amiano from San Francisco, whenever there's a genuine 90% change of ownership for a piece of property, it would have triggered a reassessment. And in the Assembly, we had Republicans vote for the bill as well.
Well, and it didn't get out of the Senate.
That's correct.
Not sure why? What was the objection?
We didn't hear what the policy objections were, but it's my intent to really continue focusing on this issue, and I may introduce the same bill next year.
Thank you to both of you. Before we go, though, Assemblyman, I must bring this up. A while back, your father was murdered in a terrible crime that took place in Silver Lake, and it received a lot of publicity. He was a beloved figure in the neighborhood. What is the status with that investigation?
Well, we're coming up on the one-year anniversary. November 12 will be the one-year anniversary. We still have basic information. There's a person of interest, but there's no leads. I still encourage the public, if there's anything that anybody knows, to step forward. We're looking for anything we can at this point. We're doing everything. I can't tell you how much of my day is spent every day just trying to help the police solve this crime, trying to think about ways to get more information. If there's anything the public has, just encourage them to step forward.